I'd like to make 2 comments, Rabbi.
What?
We didn't even start. Go ahead, Elias.
No, I don't want to make. We are live, so just
My
keep that in
granddaughter
mind.
was in
There's
your
usually somebody in
class
front, so I
this
never.
morning.
I like the view.
She
Oh,
absolutely,
from SKA.
A clear angle.
she absolutely loved
Give me
it.
a smell.
It's your wife.
Yeah.
She
did, I
absolutely
probably
loved it from
I
SKA.
probably
That's
would.
nice.
Number
I wouldn't
two,
say
Such a
now,
nice,
I wouldn't
it's such a
say
nice
now.
group of girls.
Yeah.
Great group.
I wish, sometimes I say, I wish I was back in school today.
Yeah. School's a lot nicer now than it used to be.
Yeah, what?
It's a lot nicer now at school than it
Well,
used to
when
be.
I went to school, they were all dressed, and we didn't have this.
Yeah.
When I went to school,
Yeah, you got away with a lot more back then,
It
because now
was
they
good.
trash
It was
everything.
good then. No, it
No
was
good.
clean.
We're live.
Number
Oh,
2,
sorry.
I just want you to know that your shiur on Tuesday night, the topic not only was great, but it was the way it was delivered by yourself. That I just want you to take
Go
notice.
ahead.
We're live.
Go ahead, thank you.
Okay?
Very shy.
When did you get to be such a nice guy?
Weird.
I always,
And the long coat.
People have the wrong image of me.
I
I've
know.
heard that before.
I'm joking. Thank you, Elias. I appreciate
It was very good. I've seen it before, but you took off. I mean, you were into it to disseminate it, and it was because it was part of you.
it. Okay. Oh, Hashem, thank you.
We all second the motion.
We should continue to learn together, all of us in good health.
We go back on the record, or we continue off the record? That's where we left last year.
Yes, yeah. Off the record.
Yeah.
That was last Thursday?
Yeah.
How many people
I did that
text
grant last Thursday. That was that.
Nobody knows that. That's,
I got it.
we don't think I.
Everybody's asking for the part that was off the record.
Yeah, everybody is asking for that.
Okay. Just tell me what I should do here. Sorry.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Scott. Say it. Okay. Fine. Good. Are you able to hear? It's all right? Let me just use. One second.
I'm just going to click your phone. Just make sure. Just keep me on.
Obviously, right?
It's just literally
Recording in progress.
just trying to swing.
Yeah. Scott.
Now see if people can hear.
It says.
What does it say now?
Let me just get myself off here. Let me see. Okay. Shmuel, you able to hear? See? Yeah, good. Okay, we say that. Good. First, I want to thank the Chevra at Meridian, sponsoring the Shiur, and also one of our Chaverim is sponsoring Lidl and Nishmas, Esther Tova by Saliezer Ben Yamin HaKoyin, and Hashem Shabbat Aliyah, and whole family Shalom Simcha Nachas and Bracha.
Amen.
So, we're in Meshivas Nefesh with the Parish Meshiv Nafshi on page Ayin Aleph. This interesting little sort of interruption into in the middle of our program of Meshivas Nefesh of Hischazkes, where the Rebbe Susi Elenu, and the Torah from the Rebbe in Reish Mandal, which we saw inside, is warning us about the danger of interacting with non-Jews in this world that we're in, and we saw that in Likud Moran, Rabbi Nachman tells us that we need to know that the koach of a person, of a Jew, is greater than that of an angel, greater than that of a malach. So we were talking about this last week. It's interesting that here in the Meshivas Nefesh we don't find that sentence, which seems to be the ikar of this whole Torah, which is the way that Rav Kivak is explaining it. But the main point here is of course to be careful, and we understand, and Rav Nachman is warning us that that through that interaction with people who are not like us, there can be that our entire Yiddishkeit can be affected, and we could have chalila, nefila as a result of that interaction. But the main hischazkus that comes out from this Torah is that if one does have to be in that world, in this world, and which most people have to be, that a person should know that the same way that Yaakov, when he fought with the Malach, even though it was hard and he was injured, but Vatuchal, but Yaakov was victorious because the koach of a Jew is greater than that of a Malach. Even though we see, and that's how the Torah we began, that there were Malachim that came into this world and they didn't manage. They couldn't manage in this world. The Nephilim fell in this world. Nevertheless, a Yid, a Jew, has the ability of Atuchal that we inherited from Yaakov Avinu. That even though we're wrestling with Malachim in this world, not always good Malachim, but some very destructive Malachim, nevertheless, in the end, we're going to win. So we're in the middle of the page. We're at Lo Lishkach HaHefesh Ben Yisrael L'Goy. Because when a person lives in the world of Yahadus, of Yiddishkeit, Chaim Shal Tmimus V'Emunah, a life of Tmimus, Emunah, faith, Mokum Shema'orim Achein Shal Torah V'Avodah, when he lives among people who share his ideals of Torah and Avodah, Tznius and Histapkus, modesty, and being people, Histapkus, who are happy and satisfied with what they have in life. Derech Eretz, Ban Hager, Ben Adam Chavero, and a life where people treat each other in the way of Derech Eretz and so on, Bachilaso. As I afim over al Hadam Hasha'over. In other words, the point that he's making here, Rav Kivak, is that one's environment makes a huge difference in one's life, and who you very more. As I afim over al Hadam Hasha'over, and even if a person goes through what he has to go through, Adayin efshel achazkel ha'iro shekoicha rab me'mar malachim. No matter what a person goes through, if he has that his chazkus of having a good chavra, it's very, very, very important, and he'll be able to be mischazik, knowing that despite his nisyanis, koicha rav me'mar malachim, he has greater strength than a malach. Therefore, a person has the strength to be meschadish mikol hanefilas. It's now Parshas HaChodesh, and the schadjes, and mikol hanefilas. Ki Hashem Yisborach misparavo. Vayirida hirak l'tzorach aliyah. Because Baruch Hu is there with a person, takes pride in the person, and whatever he's going through, whatever you read is, it's only l'tzorach aliyah, as we've been learning throughout the Sefer. Masha Enken Kashem ben Hagoyim. Masha Enken, when a person is not living amongst those, he's not living, or he's not spending most of his time among those who create that kind of an environment of tznius and derech eretz and emunah and tmimus, but rather he's ma'ir ben Hagoyim. But he spends a great deal of time.
We don't hear you. It's not clear. We can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, something's wrong.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Just reset it once, if it doesn't work.
Reset, just log off and log back in. Okay, we'll try to log off.
Okay, we're gonna go off and then go back in. Try that.
If it doesn't work, then they'll just have.
Try one more time, please.
Yeah, if not, they could just go on to the live stream.
That leads been a little bit.
You want to just send it to the left?
Recording in progress.
Right, that's better.
That's what we're going to tell people to do for that.
That's what the guy we mentioned last week.
Right now, let's see.
Okay, is it working? Hello? Is it working? I don't know.
Just send yes.
And then we'll, no, I'm sorry. Then we're going to call it a day.
Recording in progress.
Use that camera instead. Let's try now. Let's see. I'm moving over.
Okay, how about now? Hello?
We hear you.
Okay, Simi, it's clear? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you clear.
Okay, beside it. So let's continue. Okay. So, Mashenkin Kashamari Ben Hagoyim. Again, I said this last week that this little Torah is not politically correct at all. And let's just hope we keep it amongst ourselves. Mashenkin Kashamari Ben Hagoyim, however, when living amongst Goyim, Yochabli Mesim Leivli Moshach Achar Chen Shalhem. It's very, very easy, as we were talking about last week, since we're living in Golis, and in Golis, like Rabbi Nachman says in the first Torah, that the Chen in the Chashivas is not by us. The Iker Chen in Chashivas, the world is, this is what we're up against, trying to raise children in 2025 in Tavshin Pei, that everywhere they turn, everywhere they look, they see what seems to them to be Chen in Chashivas. Of course, it's not true Chen in Chashivas, it's the Chen of Sheker HaChen. It's not the Chen, the true Chen. It's Sheker HaChen v'Hevla Yofi, but it's unbelievably powerful and seductive. And the Chen and the Chashivas of Torah and of Yiddishkeit is in Golas. So when we're living with each other, and you're in a wonderful chevra of people who are filled with Chen and Chashivas, which I thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu that over here, my wife and I, we feel that we are the most fortunate people in the world. I'm not stop saying this, but it's the greatest fortune of our lives that we're among people who are filled with Chen and Chashivas. And when you're with a chevra that has that Chen and Chashivas, then you're constantly strengthened by that, and you feel that you have, even though everybody has nisyanis, but you feel that you have the strength to contend with the world. That's very, very empowering. When you come from a good home and you have good friends, then even though everybody has nisyanis, but when you're Yaakov Avinu and you in that world of Yaakov Avinu, then you're able to handle the Malach of Esav. You're able to handle the Zar Shel Esav, Atuchal. We all get injured. Even Yaakov Avinu walked away limping. We get injured. He was cured. Yaakov Shalem, and he was cured. And so too, all of us are going to be cured of these injuries that we pick up over the years. But when you're not in that sviva, when you're not, if Chalila, in your own home, God forbid, there's a tabus ra, like children who are raised in very, very angry, difficult homes, chas v'shalom. If you don't have good chaverim, then you don't feel that confidence of having the koyach to fight against Esav. You don't feel that you have the koyach that's stronger than a malach. And if even a malach can be swallowed up by this world, so then you could be swallowed up also. The person gets swallowed up as well. And it's very easy to be drawn after the chen, that charm that the world has, that excitement of the world. Lishmos kol divrei hasvak shalhem ha'ma'orvim b'kfirus v'teva, and then you become very, very much mesmerized by all of the politics and all of the shtiyot that's filled with kfira, it's filled with heresy and so on. Hefkerus, Redifa Achakol Dover, Okol Dvar Mius. And to be chasing after it, to be attracted to all things that are very, very unholy, the opposite of holiness. Kach nichtnas b'machshavto b'bulei hachadosh shechayetzevo. So you could very easily become a person that is confused by all the chadoshes, meaning all the news that you hear. I've spoken about a lot. This goes back already when the COVID was going on, and now during this past kufa with the Muhammad, where people are listening to all kinds of news and podcasts, and all of these things that are filled with all kinds of kfir and shtusim and so on. I'm not talking about there are people that there are podcasts that are made by very chashuv, fine people. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the things that are out there, the news and all that stuff. This has happened to many of the young people. There are older people like this too, but it happens to many of the young people till the person just loses any feeling of how beautiful and how sweet Yiddishkeit is. And for that person who's ma'oriv ben hagoyim, nowadays ma'oriv ben hagoyim doesn't mean that you have to necessarily be on a job with it, or you have to live in a neighborhood that's not Jewish. Because as we spoke about last week, just the technology means that anybody who owns this or anybody who has a smartphone or computer is by definition ma'oriv ben hagoyim. That's your metzius. The metzius is that you're ma'oriv ben hagoyim. And if a person becomes caught up in that chen of sheker chen in the world, then it's very hard to be makabel deveis chaskus. It's very hard to be makabel to tell a person, you can fight against this, you're strong. And what you're seeing nowadays, and I've spoken about this many times, I just had this conversation with somebody last week, that it used to be that if a person had a certain nisayon, you did your best to fight against it, and maybe you would speak to somebody, a good friend to help you, or a rebbe, somebody, or a parent, somebody that could give you some chizuk. But now what's happening more and more is that if somebody has a certain kind of a nisayon, or a certain weakness, a certain shigaon, or a certain craziness, then there's a way to find the other people like you online. So in 2 minutes, you're not just not getting advice from the right place, but you're all together, like ma'orv, mixed into the group of people who have the same problem as you, and many of them will be telling you, because these are not tzaddikim necessarily. So many of them are some nice people, but not tzaddikim. Some of them are not nice people either. But they're not giving you chizuk. The chizuk that they give you is, you should be like us. Mm-hmm. You should be like us. So the whole thing is just chalices. So the way the things used to be is that you would feel oftentimes like you were like a lonely warrior. That you were fighting against uglier things in the world. But you had your home, and you had your shul, and you had your shiur, and that was the life. That was your life, and then you had the stuff outside to contend with it. But in our times, when a person comes into his house, and in his house he has, again, I don't go with this whole thing with the technology. It's not my line of work, fighting against technology. But just the emes is that a person has that stuff. He has access to all these things. So then instead of finding your chiyas, with the wonderful people who love you in your home and in your shul, even though that doesn't mean you don't have sometimes arguments and have disagreements, but these are the people who are your people who love you, and even if you're other Jews that you might have disagreements with, but self-self they're your people. Instead, what's happening now more and more, I have conversations with Chaver about this that they tell me this all the time, that in 2-3 minutes they're online and they're in a whole like sub-society. They're in some ugly, dark world with people who have the same mishagas or the same nitiya, except they're already committed to it. And then it seems to the person who was suddenly, who finds himself in this room with all of these people from different places in America or in the world, it seems that that's the chen chashivas. And then his parents try to talk to him. Is everything okay, Moshe? What's going on? Sarala, you all right? Everything? Why we haven't seen you lately? Where are you? You're hiding in your room the whole time. And then when he comes out from the room, when she comes down to Shabbos to the table, angry or tired or sleepy or going back to the room, not wanting to talk, not being engaged. This is all over the place. They live in it. Many of them are living in an alternate world, an alternate universe. There's mommy and daddy, Abba and Ima. They're living. They were their parents and they were their siblings, and with the teachers and the rebbeim and shul, and then they have this alternate universe. I mean, somebody was telling me that a few years ago, that she's a mora. She teaches in a girls' high school, a very wonderful school, and she said that I don't know I don't know if it was the right thing to do, but there were administrators or people there in the school that were able to get access to the girls' Facebook. I guess that's whatever they have, like their social media. That girl's private. I don't know if it's private because she shares it with other people, but I guess I don't know how you have to have a password. I don't know how it works, but teachers, I don't think that was a nice thing for them to do. Personally, that the teachers shouldn't. I don't believe teachers should be looking into that. But kachar, and this teacher said, she told me, she's teaching in high school. She told me that you have these girls that they're sitting in front of her in class, and they're learning Shmuel Aleph or something, and they're tznius and they're sweet and they're fine and they're gewaldig, and they have like a whole other life on social media. And the pictures that I know you have to have your picture on there, I guess, or a profile or a picture, and it's like totally not appropriate, and things, poses and stuff like that. And this teacher was saying it's very, very discouraging, because she always looks at these girls the way that she should, as being fantastic and pure and beautiful, and then like now all of a sudden there's this whole. So I was telling her, the girls are fantastic and they're beautiful and they're pure and that's snuos. That's like the shade. It's like another world, that they have this alternate universe. That there was never such a thing. Listen, people would sneak around to go to a bad place, or something like that, but they didn't live in that. So now these kids that they don't want to come to the Shabbos table, or they come like with the hood, over their face, and they put their head on the table. Well, everybody's like, Abba's trying to say some Dvar Torah or sing, Yom Zemachub, and the guy's got his hood on and he's down on the ground, like after the count. So, what's going on? Because it's not they're all different stories. But a lot of the kids, they don't know. They're living in different worlds.
Rabbi, they are living in two different worlds.
Two is already not so bad. Sometimes it's 3, 4, 5,
but
multiple worlds.
And especially in areas, Teaneck, Woodmere, all these.
I think it's everywhere.
No, it's everywhere, but they are living in two different worlds. And when they leave here, they are, most people, I would say, regretfully have a TV. And what is put in front of them on the TV is not good on any level. The advertising especially, and the stories that they portray.
Right.
And this is a tremendous thing that goes into their...
Yeah, but Eliezer, there used to be that our fight, when my kids were little, our fight was against television.
Yeah, I could only watch so many shows.
You know that that was the fight. The fight was against television. And when my kids were ready, they already started to have more channels and stuff. It wasn't just 245. They started to have more channels.
200
But
channels.
but that fight against television, now it's like a left. Whoever has a computer or has an iPhone, you don't have to have a television anymore. The kid carries a television in his pocket, so you don't have to have a television. So it used to be that if you were sort of like a Ben Torah house, a Bas Torah, like that, you know, that it was a house where you were more careful with these things, so you didn't have a television, and that was like considered when we were growing up. If somebody didn't have a television, that was like wow, you know, that's unbelievable. You don't have a television because that was really the only access you had. I mean, there's a radio, but the television was the only thing.
It only came in 1949.
The images. Yeah, but now television's already that's nothing. Everybody has people walking around with these phones, and the computers, and they go all over the place with these things. So the sad thing is that the young people, not just young people, but and I've had this conversation with you in the past that there are people that have gotten caught, and the wife wants to throw them out, or the police are taking them away to jail, and and when I ask like how do you do that? Like you go to the mikveh on Shabbos or something every Friday, and you learn and then you have this that stuff that they're like taking you away for. Like how did you? I'm not talking about just money things. That's something else. I'm talking about things that are you know taking away for pollution.
Isn't that cognitive dissonance?
Yes, it is. It's that cognitive dissonance leads the person, or they live in multiple worlds, and just how do you do that? I don't think about it. I come home. I'm a father with my kids, my wife. Everything is nice. Yom Zamachubad. And, you know, shul, Daf Yomi, the whole program, I'm on. And then there's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There's the other person. It's a pachad. So when I was younger, there were people like that, but there were classifications for them. Like, you know, it was rare to have such extreme opposites in one person. But nowadays, especially the young people, so they're taken in by the chen of the world that sheker chen, that false chen that they see in the world, and then you see that you're losing them. You see that you're losing them.
Is that tied to the mimer that we learned Hadar though? Is that just a difference?
Is that tied to
the mimer that we learned Hadar from Rav Kook? Is that just a difference in people?
What we're talking about now, they probably would have said back where Rav Kook was saying also in a certain way. But the difference, I think, Avi, is that the chen that they saw back then, you know, the turn of the 20th century, was more of an ideological, intellectual chen that they were attracted to, a way out of the ghetto, a way out of the shtetl. And so literature, non-Jewish Goyish literature, art, and so on, and philosophy. That was where the chen was mostly found. But the chen of 2025 is the sewer. These kids in school couldn't care less about Aristotle and Plato. They don't care about Hemingway or Milton or Shakespeare. Most of them never heard of them, unless they had to take some kind of a class or whatever. And then they got somebody else's notes. They're not interested in that. Even when I'm not that old, but when I was a kid, like we used to argue about literature. I mean, we used to have it was about baseball too, but there was more of a fascination. The celebrities of the world were not People magazine. The celebrities of the world, there's this Hollywood thing, but and even they present it as more decent human beings. But the celebrities of the world, It's like Einstein, he was a celebrity. That's a little bit before my time.
You stupid.
That has nothing at all to do with what I'm saying. The thinkers, I'm not talking about whether they were religious or they weren't religious, whether they're believers or not believers. But what people were attracted to, the chen of the world, was something that was more sophisticated and refined. I'm not saying it was true.
Yeah, but what I'm saying though, what I'm asking maybe is that isn't that then just the further end of that spectrum? Is that okay? It moves from the head and then it just comes down to the body.
Absolutely.
And the kids are just
Yeah, and that's why we're now in ikvis the Mashiach, and the ekev means the heel. Means that whereas if you were a yeshiva bacher in Russia in 1926. So the biggest Yetzer Hara that you were confronted with was Bialik, or maybe Chekhov, Russian literature, Haskalah, things like that nature. It wasn't the stuff on the internet. Now, the wrestling match, the fight then was more in Chabad, in Chachma Bina Das. And in our times, it's Yesod and Malchus, because we're holding by the end before Mashiach comes. So by the time of Ikvis to Mashiach, the Ikkim Melchamas are on the place of the Indian of Yosef Atzadik and David HaMelech. The Indian of Yosef Atzadik, David HaMelech, is Kedushas Habris and Kedushas Hapeh, Kedushas Hadibur, and davening, Kedushas Habris, Tefillah. These are the belief. Malchus is the Indian of Emunah, belief in Hashem, simple pshitas, tamimus of David HaMelech, that Emunah of David HaMelech, and the Nisyonis of Yosef Atzadik of Gilei Raya is now the Ikka before Mashiach comes. These are the main Nisyonis, like Absadik all the Tzaddikim told us. This is what we're going to see before our eyes. What's happening? Whereas a short time ago, in Rav Kook's time, when he wrote Hadar, so again, people always had, there was always taivas, but the chen of the world, was very, very different. It was very different. They weren't losing Jews to the disgusting Ukrainian peasants' way of life. They weren't losing. That's not what they were losing Jews. Jews did not want to become Ukrainian peasants. Those were people who were marred in filth before internet. They didn't want to become that. It was like, there was no chen. That was the embodiment of ugliness. But what's happened over time, and before Mashiach comes, is that the most disgusting, depraved types of arayas, of gilei arayas, suddenly have, there's a chen. People are drawn and attracted to the lowest things. That anybody 20, 30, 40 years ago the ears would have turned red. They would have said, listen, I also have Yetzer Hara, but this is this is crazy. I'm not. This is crazy. So it's a different type of a. This is our milchama. It's the milchama of Yesod and Malchus, Yosef Atzadik and David Malka Mashiach. These are our milchamas now. And the things that are so perverse and so ugly are filled with such seductive chen. It's something that parents and grandparents are just shaking our heads. How could you possibly? How is that something that you find? How could you even listen? Just forget about it. I'm being honest with you. Baruch Hashem, there are many simchas, many chasnas. To me, the music that's being played, I'm not talking about Eitan Katz and the holy chaver, the ones that are playing kosher music, but there are the other stuff. A lot of the guys are playing, and they're nice fellas. I don't mean God forbid, but the stuff that they're playing, it's the sound of filth. It's not just that it's bad music; it's horrible music. But it's not just bad music. It's the sound of Gilei Arayos. I don't know any other way to put it. It's the sound of a call of the wild, of the jungle. It's the beat of impurity. There's something that's so impure. There's something that's so not holy. And now you see the way the boys are jumping. Oh, they start calling like animals before the Chas V'Kala come out. All of this stuff. So, we look at each other like the ones who are a little bit older. We look at each other and say, okay, the boys are having a good time. It's better they should be here. It's all. I get it. Better they should be here. as opposed to actually being in the jungle or somewhere else. It's true. They're with us, Baruch Hashem, better they should be at a chasna, and it makes. But when you look at it, and you weren't raised in that world, and you come from a time where, before that started, you can't help but see. I think. I mean, maybe I'm crazy myself. I don't know. It seems to me to be like with a certain kind of a wildness that it's not just about having fun. There's something darker there. I know it sounds a little bit extreme, but I feel there's something much darker about it. But is it better that they be here? Yes. And we love them, and the Gavaldi, everything is fine. But there's something in the sound. There's something in the motions of how they're making those motions. That if we would not be here now, and we would have the eyes of our grandparents, they would run from the room like being frightened that this is something very, very base and ugly that's taking place. And now we just stand around. If you're lucky, you have earplugs. If you forgot them, you just try to make the best of it and say, boys will be boys. I don't know what goes on the girls' side. I don't know what's going on with the girls. I'm assuming that the girls are somewhat more toned down or refined. Just they have a teva like that. But by the boys, and by yeshiva guys, Bnei Torah, Hasidim across the board. You have these Hasidic guys now standing up there, and they're the ones that are making that music. These guys with the long pace, and they're standing up there, and they're doing the moves, and they're making those sounds that are sounds of impurity. It's not just horrible music that any person can tell right away. This horrible music, but besides this horrible music, of course they'll do the one Odi Shaveri, but after that it's downhill, and it's not just that it's horrible music. It's ugly. It's base. It's something impure. Not that those people are, God forbid. I'm not saying the people that are playing it. They're nice people, but they're making those sounds that are impure. And there's a certain and the kids like it. There's a chen. How could anybody find any chen in this kind of stuff? But they do, and that's the time that we're living in. And Hashem as well gave us the kaiches to deal with it. But what he's saying is that when you're ma'ariv ben ha'akum, and that's where we are now. You go to a Yiddish chasna with a wonderful chasna kala, and everything is glad kosher, and you're still ma'ariv ben ha'akum. Not because of the waiters and waitresses. They're usually just quiet, nice people. They bring you your plate. I'm talking about what goes on. I'm talking about what we ourselves are doing and the behavior and what goes on. You see Bachar walking around with whiskey, putting it under their chair the whole picture is a picture of not Jewish. It's just not Jewish. Guys walking around like these boys walking around, swishing their schnapps in the cups, walking around, leaving it of course with the garden to clean. And the whole thing is just perverse. And that's Hashem's Baruch wants us to be in this time. That's what we have to do. But there's the chen of the world. It's a sakana gedola. Shebezeh yesh. V'chesh ve'ad shebezeh yesh sakana gedola abed klalas ahergish b'neimus achen sheyesh b'hadis. So now you try to play a beautiful niggin for this chaver, and it has no appeal. It doesn't appeal to them. So you're going to really love this. It's a fantastic niggin. You play some, like the rabbi's son's 1976. You know what I'm talking about? And they play Rachel Mivach or something, and they look at what's the matter with you? They roll their eyes and they make a smile. You take the old guy, and that's it. And they say this, you just they look at you like you're missing it, and then they just go back jumping up like in the jungle. Oh, you see this latest thing before they bring the chassan kala? Is anybody going to stop that? What is that? They used to have this thing. It started maybe in the 80s, where they have by the Goyish concerts where they jump into what's it called? Mash.
Crowd surfing.
Yeah, they jump. They used to mash. Yeah, they like. So we're a little bit behind, but that's it. That's what the thing looks like. What goes on? Looks like a mosh pit. They lift people up and throw them into the crowd.
Goes into the crowd.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is what it looks like.
They do that at the.
So v'oz kvar kosher moed lekabel b'liba divas chaskos. And then it's when a person begins to be more and more enchanted and mesmerized by the chain of the world, by the chain of that world of impurity, it's very hard for that person to receive the veis chazkas. It's very hard for him to muster up the koiches that he needs to fight against this world, because he's bought into the world. How do you fight against the world that you bought into? That's your world. It used to be that there was our world, and then there was the other world. In other words, that's your opponent. That's the adversary. So it's me versus I. That's my adversary. But once you invite that into your life, and that becomes your world, that's no longer your opponent. You're on the same team. So since when do you play against your own team? So you lose the energy to fight, because you're not you're not fighting. And the hischazkas that you're hearing, it's very hard to hear hischazkas, because hischazkas means I'm fighting. It's hard for me. I need to be strengthened. So you could hear the various hischazkas, because you're in a war and you're fighting against your opponent. But if you deserted, if you're not in the war, then what's the hischazkas? You should really go back into the war. No, I'm done with that. My life is much better now. I don't want to go back to the war. I'm not going back in. I'm done. I'm not going back. So what's the hischazkas? Chizik is when you're in something and you mechazik the person, to strengthen the person. So the team's having, this big game they're having, and the coach gives the guys chizik, right? So it's halftime, whatever it is, or the boxer, it's the round ended, and he goes back to the corner, and the manager, the coach tells him, you got it, you're doing this a little bit like this, a little bit like that. You're in, you gewaldig, it's gewaldig, and the guy and the chai goes back in. He runs back in. The bull goes back into the ring. You're giving chizik to somebody that's in the fight. But if the guy in the boxing match gets flattened out and he's unconscious, he's on the floor, and you tell him, you really need to see this piece in the Kedushas Levi. There's a gewaldige piece in Kedushas Levi. The guy's out cold, and you're telling him Kedushas Levi. Teachers could feel like that when you walk into the classroom. You look at the hoodies, and they're out cold, and you're telling them, "I want to talk to you about the Chavetz Chaim." They're living in another world, and that's what I mentioned a few weeks ago. That I've heard from a few of the rebbeim in yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael that they've been crying about this. That it used to be that the kid finally got out of the world, all the make believe stuff he was in. And we had him in Eretz Yisrael in the yeshiva, and we had him for like a year to be detoxed, whatever they call it, and to get out of that stuff. And he had him because he was in that world. But now with the phones, the Rebbe's they bring everything that they have. They bring it to Yerushalayim. So the Rebbe's sitting there in the room in Yerushalayim. You can look out the window, you can see the Kaisel, right? And in Yerushalayim, and he's not, the kid's not in Yerushalayim. It used to be the kid was in Yerushalayim with you. Or he was in Yavne, Kerem Yavne, and Shalavim. Used to be the kid was with you. But now you're talking to the kid, and he's still in his different planets. And maybe over time, and enough, Torah and enough Tiyulim and Achvais, whatever. But this is what they're up against, the Rebbeim. And they're telling this to me that they don't know what to do. Because to make a rule that you can't bring the thing in at all, in some kind of yeshivas they can do that. But to make a rule in a lot of these yeshivas, they can't. The kid's not going to come. They're not going to come. So they shouldn't come. We have to get them here. Try it. At least try it. We got to get them to Eretz Yisrael to try. But this is what's happening. That a person has to know. But despite everything, the ikka and the kuta of this Torah was that with everything, even though it makes it very much harder to be a Chazik, a person who's lost in another world, still a Jew has unbelievable kaiches, greater than a malach, and he can turn his life around in a second. But when he's mixed up in that world, it's much harder. It's just much more dangerous when he's Mariv and Akum. The Ben Goy Shechai Lo Tachlis B'Chayev Keres K'Vehema. I don't know if I'll translate that, but for the greater listening audience, but there's a Torah Rabbi Nosson has when he speaks about the masquerade, the customs of Purim, and what was happening in Shushan Habira, and Jews were at a place in Am Yisrael was at a point in our lives where we were beginning to lose the ability to make a distinction between Avraham and Baruch Mordechai. That's what's happening. Used to be, a person knows this is Haman and this is Mordechai, and Avraham and Baruch Mordechai. Okay, it's interesting, it's exciting. Maybe I have a little bit of a look every now and then, but it's Avraham and Baruch Mordechai. But the Indian of the disguises of Purim of Adliyad is an Avraham and Baruch Mordechai. The tikkun of Purim is the highest tikkun. I'm not going to that now. To fix even the person who's lost, and that inability to distinguish between the real person and the costume. Because any time that a Jew is acting that way, in other words, when the Chevra is jumping up and down like animals at the wedding, that's just a costume. That's not who they really are. They're holy, the Heilig Eden, the holy Jews. This is Yeshiva Bacher. So he's a Yeshiva Bacher is a Heilig Eden. He's a holy Jew. He's a Jew that sits and learns of Mitzvah of Basur. So what's he going now like this, acting like an animal? It's a disguise. It's Purim. There's a confusion between Avraham and Baruch Mordechai. So Baruch Mordechai is behaving like Avraham. The tikkun of Purim is to come to a place that's higher than any of that. Of course, it's Kesser Kol Aksarim. But the costumes, the disguises of a Jew dressing up like the opposite of who he is. So this little boy dresses up like Achashverosh or something. But all of that was a costume. What's happening nowadays is that the guy's wearing a suit. He's just wearing a regular suit. He's got his stitches even got nice stitches coming out from under the jacket. But he's jumping up like a Haman. He's screaming, making noises like a Haman. So it's much harder. Like we're living in an Adliyada. It's one big Purim spiel. But they actually take it seriously. This is the chen that the world has. And it's very, very hard. He can lose his complete recognition, the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. The Jew was sent l'sakin Yisrael to fix the world, to refine the world, to improve the world, to make the world a world that's filled with true chen and true chashivas. And instead, the person of Chalila is drawn to the world of Avraham, that world of Hafkerus, and so on. Next page, Valzem Ma'ir Ma'oid. Shama'ir B'neim Yashkel Atzmo Tomid Koicha Agladol Sheyesh L'Glal Yos Yehudi V'Vayimoshech Achar Chen Shel. And therefore, Rabbi Nachman is reminding us and trying to be mechazik us to remember who we are. That even though every now and then you might put on a little bit of a disguise, a costume, but to remember who the person is underneath the costume and not to get lost in that world of Avraham and to be drawn into the chen of the world. V'das l'novan, Pejayin Beis, Shu Ika Sivas HaKoshi L'Kabel B'Libenu Eitzes V'Daki Yischazkos Hamitim Shor Rabbeinu Zal. That this is a very big reason why you could learn over and over his chazkus, whether it's from the Viditchva or whether it's from Rabbi Nachman, or it could be his chazkus that you're hearing from Rabbi Eli Lapian or from Rabbi Chazkel or Rabbi Yuchim from Bali Musa, or you're hearing it from the Ben Yishchai. But it's so hard to be mekabel his chazkus. Machmas shehis arbusim ha'akim v'halicha b'darcheihem achar achein shalhem is gavim ha'oid b'yameinu, because we're living in a time where people are just running after the chen. Instead of the chen of Rabbi Nachman or the chen of the Chavetz Chaim, they're just mesmerized by the chen of the world, which they now have available to them all the time. Anything they want. all the time. There's a kanazu or rebels to chol adam, they kisvei ace, and this is a danger that is to, of course, all the newspapers, v'dachi tiksharis, and all social media, liminaim. Dachi tiksharis means all types of communication, which means the social media. So all of these things, which I don't know the chiluk between one and the other, but the TikTok and the Facebook and all of these other things that they have, that even in the non-Jewish world, they're writing already books. There are all kinds of things that are being written about this how it's affecting because this is the first generation of this insanity. So somebody gave me to read a very chashuv book. I didn't finish it, but it's a very chashuv book called the Anxious Generation by Professor Haidt, Haidt. But it's about this nakuda. It's not written from the perspective of Shulchan Aruch or Tanya. It's just to be a healthy, normal human being. That our children are exposed to bilbulim of sheker beyond anything that's imaginable. So all the parents are walking around thinking, my kid's in the best yeshiva, my kid's a nice kid, and everything must be fine. And you don't know what the stuff that they hear, the kind of things that they've heard or that they've seen. Bilbulim. And without realizing it, that sweet, innocent little boy or girl that you were raising is swept along in the sheker achein. And they want to dress, to act in every way like what they're seeing on social media, what they're seeing on the shows. So they lose any feeling of the chen of Yiddishkeit, to the beauty of Yiddishkeit, to how beautiful it is, how beautiful Shabbos is, how beautiful the tzaddik is, how beautiful a piece of Torah is. They lose. And that's why Rav Kivak says, that's why this was put in over here into Meshivas Nefesh. Because it's very important. This warning. That if you find yourself drifting more and more over to that chen of the other side of the akum, so then it's going to be increasingly difficult for you to be able to connect to the hischaskas that we're trying to talk to you about, that we're trying to give you. Therefore, you have to do whatever you can to try to be ma'or the chen and the chashivas of Yiddishkeit, which is another reason why it's so important that our children from an early age be exposed to pnimis Torah, to the chen of Torah. What's chen? Chen of the letters chachman esteres. The pnimis of Torah is the Torah that's all Torah has chen. All Torah is filled with chen. Every piece of Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, every Rashba, every Ramban is filled with chen. Chachman esteres, the chen of Torah is in the chachman esteres. It's in pnimis of Torah. That's the chen of Yiddishkeit. There's where you see more the chen of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. The chen and the chashivas of what it means to be a Jew is found in the Sfar HaKadoshim. That's why we can't afford to delay, and that's what I was talking about on Tuesday night about ending the Golas Adibur and being able to speak already, to be able to speak openly to the Chevra, not just about their inyanim that they have, like we're talking about by Yosef Tzadik Kabur, but to talk openly about Pnimis HaTorah and the Chachman Nisteres, and to be able to talk about the Zohar Kodesh and Aviyah Kodesh, always in a way that's, of course, working with that child or that person or that class. But Chachman Nisteres is chen. The hidden Chacham of Torah is all the chen of Yiddishkeit. The greatest chen of Yiddishkeit is found in Chachman Nisteres. It's the opposite of Sheker HaChen. Of the chen of Sheker. And to connect to the tzaddikim who are, when you connect to people who are stronger than malachim, it gives you the strength to be also strong like that. To connect to those people. Everybody, we have the strength to be able to mischazik and to find Hashem in everything in our lives. I will call Zais in Nizam but you have to be very careful. You should be a person that's a barhachi to be able to receive his chaskas. Because if you get lost in the other world and you're living in those alternate worlds, then you're not going to hear divrei chizuk at all. and you won't see any chayin of cheshivas in Yiddishkeit. It loses its charm. Yiddishkeit loses its charm. Kach yuchal ben hakel is chazik. The kol dibur is chazik. Samuva b'svar megadesha. But if you're living if you're together, if you try as hard as you can to be with the right people, with good people, and in a good environment, and to share divrei Elokim Chaim, then you're able to be a person who's able to be makabel divrei chizuk, to hear divrei chizuk, and to believe in the koiches that you have. You have koiches that are lamala, higher than any malach. That a malach can't understand the greatness of what the koiches of what a Jew has. That the tzaddikim say, the Balatanya, other tzaddikim said that a malach is burned in the presence of 10 Jews that get together for minyan and say Ashrei Ashrei V'Sacha, that those malachim are being burned by the Ashrei of simple Jews like us when they're just saying Ashrei Ashrei V'Sacha. So let's go say Ashrei Ashrei